When the waves came, so much changed so fast.
Gaul in the south has suffered more than most on this battered stretch of coastline.
I'm Sorrel Wilby, an Australian photographer, adventurer and writer. Just 14 days after the waves hit, and just as the news crews were pulling out, National Geographic Channel sent me to Sri Lanka with a film crew. With a story so big and tragic, I wanted to see for myself just what happened to one small community.
People were crying and screaming for days. For days.
Seeing the level of the water above your eye line approaching you.
The terrible shock and our house, it's nothing.
That's when I realised we were in serious trouble.
We wouldn't have cared about losing the house if only the children were spared.
Of all the coastlines damaged in all the affected countries, this is the story about just one place. 20 kilometres stretching from Gaul to Unawatuna to Taupe, Habaradua and Kogala. One place, so many stories. Of the 12 countries that sustained casualties from the lethal waves of the Indian Ocean, Indonesia and Sri Lanka suffered most. Like a teardrop at the tip of India, Sri Lanka is a country the size of Ireland in the UK, New York State in the US, or Australia's southern state, Tasmania. Sri Lanka boasts over 1,300 kilometres of stunning coastline, and incredibly, over 70% of that coastline was affected. Colombo, the nation's capital, was spared the worst. Here, life goes on much like any vibrant tropical city of 2+ million people. A picture of gloss and grit and fearful traffic. For some 500,000 tourists a year, it's a stopping off point for a bit of shopping and some big city wining and dining before a beach holiday or a trip inland to the tea country. Here in Colombo, life seems quite normal. But as soon as I headed south, the picture quickly changed. Just 15 kilometres south of Colombo, the scene changes dramatically. You gasp at the start of truly apocalyptic scenes that keep unfolding. From the wreckage of his fishing village near Gaul, this boy is salvaging clocks, every one a grim reminder of the moment of impact on Sri Lanka's south coast, 9:20 a.m. There was little spared at the town of Gaul. The district of Gaul is home to almost 1 million people, famous to sports lovers for its international cricket grounds that the waves reduced to this, and famous to history buffs for its fine 16th century World Heritage Portuguese and Dutch fort that draws in the tourists. The sprawling district of Gaul suffered hugely. Over 4,000 died. And seeing again this footage from a local freelance cameraman, you can understand why such a death toll. From the vantage point of his office building, Ajanta Samaravikrama saw and heard the tragedy unfold.
I heard a large crash noise, yes.
And that was the wave?
Yeah, there was. I went upstairs, the fifth floor. I saw the bunch of girls in the Gaul bus stand. One by one take away the water. Minutes after, the bus stand, Gaul bus stand, totally sunk.
Now, 25 days later, the buses are back and some stores have reopened, but so much needs redoing. I can't begin to tell you how overwhelming it's been seeing the devastation caused by the tsunami and hearing the stories that so many people have to tell. Like 4 to 5 days after their world smashed apart, little official assistance had reached as far south as Gaul. Left with no food or power and only a public well for drinking water, they found and buried their dead. But they were not alone. Individual Sri Lankans and foreigners alike did what they could, snapped into action. Meet Dulaj, 12 years old and hoping to play cricket for Sri Lanka one day. Dulaj and his 9-year-old sister Sayuri are incredibly lucky. They are alive and living with relatives inland from where they used to have a house.
This was your mother's house here?
Yes.
Yeah?
Habaradua is a coastal village of some 59,000 people. Flanked by beautiful beaches, it's a town with a mix of glamorous holiday villas, modest houses and temporary beach shacks. Once a week on Wednesdays, there's also a bustling farmers market. Dulaj and his family lived here at Habaradua. His father was a fishmonger, selling the day's catch door to door from the back of his motorbike.
Where's your house? Just there. Wow, whose fishing boat?
The family is eager to show me where they and their extended family had been so happy for so long.
So this was a kitchen?
Kitchen. Little
Okay.
kitchen.
Little kitchen.
Bedroom.
Bedroom?
Yes.
On this tiny site between the beach and the main road, there used to be 2 tiny houses. Dulaj lived on the left, and on the other side of the common wall lived his aunt, uncle and 4 cousins. His cousin, Charnika, was the same age. They were inseparable in life until the 26th of December 2004.
She was like my sister, my big sister, my real sister. I think about her. I think about her all the time. The good things, playing together, studying together, going to school together.
On that morning, Lucky Dulaj was visiting inland relatives with his father, but his sister, Sayuri, was here.
All right, so they were making a cake for this little one's cousin's first birthday. And they were here in the kitchen, and the wave came and washed them all into the back room.
The cake was never baked. The birthday boy died, along with his mother and grandfather and brothers and sisters. Of the 8 people in the house when the wave struck, only Sayuri, with just a cut foot, survived, along with one aunt. Sayuri and Dulaj's grandmother returns to the site to confront what I, as a mother, couldn't even begin to contemplate. 3 generations of loss.
We lost our children, their mother and my husband, my 5-year-old grandchild. I felt so close to her, we brought her up. She was the one who went to get milk with me. We lost the children. We wouldn't have cared about losing the house if only the children were spared.
Hazel and Graham Gallagher are an English couple who 3 years ago made their home inland from the coastal village of Taupe. They tutor English to local kids, whether they can pay or not.
Is done up, man says Peter. Now.
On that fateful day, they heard the news at 9:25 a.m.
The way we heard about the wave was that somebody said that the sea is coming over the road. When we got to the sea, the first wave had been, and the sea had gone out a long, long way. And the first thing we both turned around and said, that is tsunami.
We need to get the children off the beach. They were young boys, 12, 15, 16. They'd gone out, there were fish actually flopping in the little bit of water in the puddles where the sea had just gone out. And they hadn't seen those rocks ever before. They're always covered by sea, so they'd run out to look at the fish. We got the men to call the children in and the boys in and told all the women and children to run.
Young Bindu is employed by Hazel and Graham, but has become more like an adopted son. A phone call alerted them, had them rushing towards the beach in Unawatuna.
There was a phone call for Bindu and, oh Jesus, it was a friend of his saying, your family is okay, are you?
I will never forget the images of seeing all landmarks have totally disappeared. And, okay, the rubble.
This restaurant, that hotel.
Yeah, they've just gone.
The most dreadful thing you've ever seen.
It was terrible, because there was a man there who told us that he said there are lots and lots and lots of dead. He said the guest houses have collapsed with people in there.
One man came running along the road and he said, anybody seen my wife? She's blonde and American. Have you seen my wife? And we knew that where his wife was probably dead, but in a film somebody comes out with the pat answer. You can't do that. In reality, you choke because you knew that she was dead.
What's the worst thing you've seen?
I
think, yeah, the people afterwards with no house. I think one of the things was one of our students who was 17. We found him at what was his house with there was a small piece of wall and a piece of plywood, and he was sat under it, sort of crouching under it, And yet this was a boy who was intelligent and he spoke English and he could hardly get any words out in Sinhala or English. And to see him, who was bright and bubbly and intelligent, to see him just sat there that way.
Road here, then I walked into beach road. Then,
With the fear of aftershocks and more waves, young Bindu insisted Hazel and Graham return inland where it was safer, while he went back to Unawatuna Beach to search for survivors, just half an hour after the waves had hit. It was a day when boys became men.
Some people is dead, some people is asking help. And one of my friend with, and we walk up there.
Into that big field?
Big field, yeah. There is a water up about 4-5 feet water.
Okay, so
yeah,
up to about there and then up to the neck.
Then we walk there and one of the people shouting at me, "Here is one body." Then we say, "Keep somewhere no water." Yeah. Then we walk up there and we look. There is many bodies in that line there. Is that coconut palm trees up there? When we take some bodies and where is no water, we put in it. Somebody can see. I saw one child about 3-4 weeks old, and one man in their first baby, and
their first baby,
yeah, and taking in hand, crying, mother crying. His baby, you can't look at baby. That baby is very small. They can't do anything about it. Nobody helped them. You can't help in this, you can't help.
Bindu, he saw too much. He's seen more than most Western children will ever see in their life.
He'd been helping remove bodies from the water, and just very overwhelming that people immediately just jumped in to help each other.
Belinda Newick and Nick O'Kelly are artists from Melbourne, Australia. They'd arranged to meet up with 2 other Aussie friends for a Christmas at the beach in Sri Lanka.
We were trying to frantically get in touch with family because we'd announced our engagement on Christmas Day.
Was that Christmas morning?
Yeah.
They had just 24 hours of bliss before the fateful Boxing Day began.
And it was a very still morning, a lovely day, and no one around. Everyone was probably still sleeping off their hangovers and Christmas night. And so it was only the four of us, Emily and Michael and Nico and I, on the veranda of the Widjar Beach cottage where we were staying.
And it wasn't until it actually washed over the balcony and started moving some of the furniture when Mick said, let's move.
Okay, it's time to move, let's go. But it was very sudden movement of a lot of water.
The stair to the first level was quite close, so we all just sort of waded through the water to the stair and
tried to make it towards the stairs up to the first floor, which is where our rooms were. The waves started to come up much higher, and the courtyard was filled with debris, and the bar washed into the courtyard and all the chairs, and there was a tuk-tuk, a three-wheeler car floating in there as well.
Yeah, I just saw in the corner of my eye somebody grabbing hold of the balcony because the water had risen to just the underside of the balcony that we were standing on, and it was just continuing to rise. And I just saw him and just ran towards him and started pulling him up, and then someone else came and we just yanked him up, and he just sort of almost flew over the balcony. But it just happened so quickly. And that's when we saw the English couple who were stranded in the tree and sort of yelling to us to help.
And Emily at that point said, "Quick, let's get some sheets." So she raced, and we all grabbed sheets out of our rooms and was starting to tie them together to throw them down to the couple who were in the tree naked. They had nothing, they were just holding on to the tree.
That's where the English couple were.
Such a small tree in the behind, and the sheets are still there.
So the whole side of that cabana, it's amazing, the roof's still intact.
Wall.
Hazel and Graham found the 4 Australians, Nico and Belinda and their 2 friends, sitting near the railway track and offered them shelter.
And we said, well, we have our schoolroom, it's upstairs and it's dry, but you're welcome.
And Hazel and Graham in that instance were basically trying to work out what they could do from the village and work out how to get help. So Hazel had been ringing the British High Commission as well and just informing people, because they were one of the only houses in the area with a landline that was working.
Using what battery was left in their laptop, they sent out the message.
There's been a tsunami in Sri Lanka and there are many people dead. Please help these people.
A British Rotary Club moved fast, and by day 5 after the tsunami, Hazel and Graham had 10 substantial tents distributed, giving shelter to those local families most in need.
What about neighbours? These people have nothing.
Theirs is just one story from this place, where with a will and a telephone line, individuals met the need head-on and just did it.
We are trying.
Another couple experienced the aftermath that day, German national Helena von Roda and her Sri Lankan boyfriend, Ramala Sanduran.
We saw all the people, like thousands of people running to the hill, it's the highest area. And everyone said, don't go, water coming.
Dead bodies on the road and all the injured people and this impression on the faces of the people who just survived. Some of them half naked, barely dressed, injured, yeah.
On the way we met some people, Germans, English people who don't know where to go. Like a few people, we took them also with us and they stayed with us for 2 nights.
Even now there are still so many people suffering, and it's not only bringing aid to the temples. We started immediately as soon as the phones worked again and electricity came back. We called all our friends in Colombo to get down vans with food, water, medicals, first aid things, and we had about 3 vans coming a day. So we just started organizing all the necessary things from Colombo, and that's what we're still doing.
Helena's mother, Renata, has also experienced firsthand the resilient and open nature of many Sri Lankans. Renata and her American husband Bob had just moved into their new house on Kogala Lake, 3 kilometres inland from the sea.
We were building this house for 2 years. We moved in the day before Christmas, celebrated Christmas, and the following morning the wave came. We decided in the morning that we don't want to go as usual to the ocean to swim. We did our yoga under the balcony, and then the watchman came and said, the water is coming. And the driver who picked Helena up lost his 2 children and his wife. Somebody from the village came and brought food parcels to us, cooked food, fish and dal and fresh water, and we were served with fresh bread. We were so touched, we shared, and then decided what we can offer is we have communication skills, we have telephone, we have internet, and we will go to the temples, and was looking for foreigners in the temples, because we thought this would be a very good idea that the foreigners give us their telephone numbers and then we can phone their relatives wherever they are to tell them that they survived and to tell them where they are.
Sri Lanka is home to about 20 million people. Almost 3/4 of them are Buddhist. In the south particularly, the temple plays an important part in village life, and even more so now. While I was in Sri Lanka, the newspapers were full of stories about how much of the religious statuary on the coast had inexplicably survived.
What impressed me most was I saw, and you still can see this, that the Buddha statues, nearly all were not damaged. The Buddhist monk teachers sitting straight at where the ocean wave is now in a normal way approaching the beach, sitting there in tiny little concrete shelters. They are still sitting there.
Can you explain why?
I am of the opinion that the teachings of the Lord Buddha represent the truth, and truth always remains. And I believe that such power stays untouched.
When I read yesterday evening online that the mosques and the churches, the chapels and the Buddha statues were not damaged, the reporter said that's because there was not enough resistance. The empty churches, the empty mosques, the water could easily float out. I think that's not the explanation.
Whatever the explanation, many are thankful that anything survived such a destructive force.
Going down the coastal area, the school, there was nothing anymore. The chairs were under the broken houses, and some drawings were swinging in the wind at the walls, and there was nothing left from the primary school. And of course all the disaster around the coastal line and the desperation of the people.
Renata and Helena, their family and friends around the world, are just some of the individuals seeking to raise funds and rebuild what is lost. Everything from micro-projects of buying a new sewing machine for a tailor to rebuilding this entire school by the beach. It's where Sayuri, Dulaja's sister, used to attend classes and study hard. But this school is damaged beyond repair and on government order will be relocated inland. More than 75 coastal schools in Sri Lanka were destroyed and another 93 partially damaged. The school Dulaj attends is nearby in Habaradua. It's for older kids. Its contents, including the library, all washed away, but the trashed building is still standing.
All of these girls are pretty upset that they've lost their school. Their homes haven't been touched because they live on the other side of the river, but their school's pretty trashed. Their main concern is that they're going to fall behind in their lessons.
Thankfully, the wave came on a Sunday, a non-school day. Staff, students, US Marines and naval engineers all pitch in to clean up and repair it in time for the new school year. Many hands mean this school at Habaradua will open for business, delayed by only 1 week. When you have no house and no possessions, when all you have is memories and sometimes nightmares, school can become an important path. One path back to normality, a routine to cling to. This new amateur footage reveals well the tensions and anxieties that day as the waves struck the coastal villages of Sri Lanka. It was near this fishing and tourist village that more than 1,000 train passengers perished. Further south, in the village of Taupei, the ill-fated trains that the station master used to fret over will travel again only after the extensive damage to the rail network is repaired. But life continues here as best it can for those who live on the wrong side of the tracks. It's never been easy. With amazing skill, the women turn discarded coconut husks into string for weaving a rough kind of sackcloth. It's difficult enough trying to imagine how tough life here must be day to day in normal times. But now, after the waves took what little they had, it's just plain heartbreaking. But by restarting their cottage industry, it's one more way to look to the future without totally forgetting the past. When the waves came, terrified Sri Lankans in their hundreds ran up the road to higher ground, to temples like this one. Some 300 people sheltered here. The head monk, Setanama Lue Sudharma, moved quickly to give immediate aid.
Providing food and shelter is only one aspect of the answer. Our aim is to provide assistance on a long-term basis in order to help them get back on their feet and monitor progress for a long period of time.
For all his otherworldliness, this monk's approach has been absolutely down to earth. Food and water were provided. That was easier. But for shelter, he needed friends who could access money.
After the disaster of the 26th of December, we immediately got into action, and within a week, we set up a trust called the Taupei Rehabilitation and Development Trust.
Local lawyer and civic leader Bindu Vikramasekara joined the monk and others to raise funds where they could.
The needs of the Sri Lankan people are very great because thousands have lost their lives, hundreds of thousands have become homeless, and the need is ever so great.
The monk and Bindu took me on their daily rounds, going house to house, seeking out the stories, finding those most in need.
This is another family that lost everything, and they are surrounded by the swampy land, which is now a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Whatever donations that he received, he has in turn given them to the people.
Every house along the track harbours another heartfelt story of survival or not.
Some people were left with only what they were wearing. They lost all their belongings, and it is our duty to provide them with whatever help that we can.
45-year-old Samanda works as a day labourer when there's paid work going. He averages $20 to $30 a month. His wife, Priyanthi, between minding 3 kids and keeping house, stitches together these coarse sackcloth bags that are used in the tea industry. If she stitches 10 bags in a day, she will earn a total of 25 cents for her labour. But every bit helps. Their old house, destroyed by the water, was largely sticks and mud and a thatched roof. But 4 months ago, they made a big decision. This family was going to build a proper house. On top of their life savings, they pawned the family jewellery and took out a bank loan for $150. All up, enough at least to get the foundations laid for a new house of bricks and cement. They dug their foundations deep and strong alongside their old house of mud and straw, but that was before the disaster.
This is where the family of 5 used as a sleeping area, and the area behind is where they used to cook their meals, and they rushed out to the nearby house, and they saw that their house collapsed in front of their own eyes.
I have some solace that all my family survived, but I'm also very, very sorry that my friends and relatives have suffered loss of human life.
It's a close community of neighbours along this railway track, like this young family of 5 trying to put their lives back together. Every spare rupee they saved went to building a better future for the family. Sanath is a 34-year-old father of 3. As a security guard, he earns around $50 a month.
They have been living here for the last 8 years. This is their own plot of land.
A tiny sliver of land, although 125 metres inland from the sea. The tsunami did this to their house and their hopes.
The wife is unemployed, the 3 children, and all of them were living in this place where we are right now.
In this little one here?
In this little one. Their target was to collect sufficient money and build something. But with the tsunami, they have lost all hope.
The Sunday when the wave came, Dilrukshika was in the house with her husband and her newborn son.
My husband, who came just at that time, grabbed that infant and we all ran inland.
My son on the beach.
11-year-old Gihan ran for his life, was washed away but scrambled to the 2nd floor of a beachfront hotel. Gihan is still frightened by the memories. He will not return to the beach alone.
Our idea is to provide at least 100, 150 houses in this village to those people who have lost everything.
For families like these, the Taupe Trust has clear aims.
And I think a roof above their heads is the best that we consider providing them with.
This grassroots initiative is funded by private donations from around the world.
Money comes in from overseas and keeps coming from people in the West, from people who have property in Sri Lanka, from people who have visited Sri Lanka and fallen in love with the country. They have really risen to the occasion and have pledged a lot of support. And I'm sure it will continue to be so.
Every $2,500 delivers this, a 282 square foot house that is essentially one big room with a kitchen and a toilet. The design allows for the owner to build bedrooms later under the same roofline.
Around the 3rd or the 4th of January, we decided that the best course of action would be to create a model village where we could resettle people and give them a new lease of life. It is our plan to build at least 25 houses on this plot of land with recreational facilities for the children, a place of worship.
It was Aussie architect and long-time Sri Lankan resident Bruce Fell-Smith who came up with the design. But it's the monk who asks the trust to house the needy now, even before the model village is created. Today is the important groundbreaking ceremony. Just 28 days after the tsunami, the Taupe Trust is going to begin a house of bricks and cement on the existing foundations Samanda, the day labourer, and his family had begun. The auspicious time for the ceremony is 10:25 a.m. and all must face north in prayer. This will bring great blessings to the project. What I love is that Samanda will also be employed by the building contractors as a labourer, so with his own hands he will help build a new house for his family. For this family, at least, a $2,500 donation has brought them hope and a new beginning. In under a month, their new house should be completed. Today is also a very special day for a neighbouring family and the temple monk who has helped them.
Okay. I think the monk's here. The monk is here. Come outside.
Since the disaster, the temple has provided for this family's needs. The monk has donated all the family's clothing, even a party dress or two for today's celebration. But he's also here to officiate. In the midst of loss, this is a celebration for Senath, the $50 a month security guard, and his family. Today, they will name their 2-month-old infant. This baby that survived the tsunami will be named Ocean. With no other option, the family lives under plastic in the unfinished shell of a cement block house. As they save a little money for another block, they build a little more. I can only guess at the future for which this family are hoping and praying. From the kindness of strangers, the inspiring work of grassroots organisations and official government bodies, great things are growing in the wake of tragedy. One place is rebuilding itself, house by house, life by life.
There are so many children which get little food and little attention in the moment. And this could be maybe an idea how people who want to give something can be joined in. Because big organizations have a certain plan, but people who come with their own initiative could contribute on a different level. And just to experience the open hearts, this makes me very happy every night.
The amount of debris.
People had lost
their
whole houses, their whole livelihood, their businesses had just been washed away, and here they were trying to help us, and it was, very moving.
They were heroes, and they made nothing of it.
I was really, really amazed by the way Sri Lanka helped itself, really amazed, and I'm still very impressed by what they are doing and how they started walking again. I mean, returning to their old houses or what's left over and cleaning up and saying, well, next season we want to be back. We need the tourism.
With the past behind them and the future slowly taking shape, what is happening now is truly inspirational. Remember Dulaj, the 12-year-old would-be cricketer and his family who used to have a home on the beach? They're still living inland with relatives. Out of necessity, 14 people currently live in this house. On a fishmonger's takings, they have little prospect of being able to rebuild their own house anytime soon. But the good news is, Monday the 17th of January 2005 is a big day for Dulaj. It's back to school day for Dulaj and his sister. Sayuri School needs to be rebuilt further from the sea. Until that happens, Sayuri travels to a more distant little kids' school that's still intact. That school now does double shifts, an early and a late one, to cope with the influx of displaced students like her. Sayuri's injuries have healed enough for her to join her classmates on the first day of term. Dulaj is lucky. His school in Habradua that the students and Marines cleaned up is ready for business. Like so many children in Sri Lanka, Dulaj has lost his precious white school uniform, but he's happy to be back with his friends. As the school assembles to remember the past and look to the future, Dulaj knows his cousin will not be joining him again.
I am very much pleased to be with you, children. After a dreadful disaster, I would like to say that we are very lucky enough to be survived, to live on earth again. So, dear children, let's rebuild ourselves. I would like to say, my dear children, that you are not alone. We, the teachers, here are with you.
The staff seek to encourage the students to look to the future, but for some, the memories are too great. The kids need to have a childhood back. God, they need everything. They need, most of all, to receive our aid without losing their dignity and without losing their pride in who they are as a people and everything that represents. You know, they need their livelihoods back for a start.
Come up here. Dulaj, this is Bindu and this is Dulaj's family.
Hello.
And this is where they used to live.
But for Dulaj and his family, there's a surprise, something beyond their wildest dreams.
The Talped Trust has decided that you would be one of the lucky recipients of a house which you would be given without any cost to you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.